Hello, it is me, Nestor, this nihilist. Joining me is Nikolai. We are going to review video, actually existing anarchism part 1, Makhnovist, Ukraine. This isn't going to be as long as the last streams because, as you can tell, it is 16 minutes and we should be able to finish it fairly quickly. Okay.
At most, it should be an hour.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, I'm gonna review it, and, I pride myself on knowing a lot about Makhnovia. I can say I know more than the average person. Yeah? And I certainly know more than this fucker. Okay, let's dive deep into it. If you want to introduce yourself, Nikolai, again. Again.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself again. Howdy, I'm Nikolai. I'm the Christian anarchist that hates Marx more than I hate the state. And I think I'm a bit of a nice little anarchist, so.
Yeah. Alright, let's get on with it.
Of editing my response to the Libertarian Socialist rants to his Red Bureaucracy video. It's a highly requested thing. People have been asking me to do it. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make a full commentary on his video, but because it's probably gonna be kinda long, I'm going to make a series addressing a couple of anarchist arguments that were brought up or somehow came up during that. So I'm going to be making a couple of videos on individual anarchist arguments. Some of those arguments, there's why didn't the Soviet Union and other Marxist-Leninist countries, why didn't they achieve stateless communism? That's going to be one. And also I'm going to be making 2 videos on actually existing anarchism. This one is going to be on Makhnovist Ukraine, and the next one is going to be on CNT Catalonia. And I'm going to talk about how those systems and those societies were actually organized, and if they actually were stateless communism, as anarchists claim. Yeah, newsflash, they weren't, but I'll get into the details in a moment. So, first of all, the historical relevance of anarchism. It is relatively slight. I mean, let's be honest.
If you know anything about history, you know that the IWW and organizations like the IWW and in general, European anarchists have influenced the globe for ages. These philosophers, Tolstoy is one of the most renowned writers. Yeah, of course, anarchists had a big impact. That's just ignorancy.
Yeah,
Anarchism
Tolstoy
never...
within himself. Plus, he had fun fact. Aside from writing, "The Kingdom of God was within you," the foundational text for Christian anarchism, he also wrote a nice little book called The Gospel Brief, where he summarizes basically, you know, what happened within the New Testament, stuff like Jesus Christ, stuff like what John said, what Paul, like all that jazz, and that interpretation of the New Testament specifically was very popular. Like it was booming. Okay,
Yeah, and
so
also,
this like aside from Leo Tolstoy being very influential when it comes to anarchism, he was also just at least semi-influential
yeah.
Christian.
Yeah.
So
Oh, and also, not to mention
and
the Russian nihilist movement swooped Russia in the Tsarist time. What do you call it? This Russian nihilist movement was, from my knowledge, predominantly anarcho-nihilist. I did that right. I don't know how
I
to do
remember,
that.
didn't Lenin get inspired by a nihilist?
I'm not sure, but I'm not sure about any of that.
I
But
remember, I remember reading about that.
predominant, but the Russian nihilist movement were predominantly anarchist nihilists, and if it weren't for the Russian nihilist movement, anarcho-nihilism wouldn't exist. It was fairly good, and actually, a lot of people were blamed for a lot of nihilists were blamed for everything, actually, like the assassination of the Tsar and even the assassination of Franz Ferdinand that kick-started World War One. It's crazy.
A system that posed a significant threat to capitalism or any other system. It didn't.
Can I mention, by the way, I know this is a very cool painting, but this guy looks like he's doing a Hitler salute. Could have picked a better picture.
Also, on the idea of anarchists not making a system that challenged like capitalism, it's a bit of a weird thing to say, considering that at least for most historical anarchist experiments, they were made in retaliation to whatever opposing forces they dealt with. And Paris Commune was made as a retaliation against whatever army existed during that time. Anarchist Ukraine was against the USSR, the White Army, all that jazz, and the Korean People's Association in Manchuria was against not only Maoist China but also Japanese imperialism. So, these, although sure we could say that they didn't directly challenge these systems, they still managed to survive in opposition to these systems. And let's not forget that numerous anarchists have been, heck, anarchists are mostly known for, assassinating people. I hate to break it to you, but, anarchist experiments may not be that, challenging when it comes to a modern system, but have you seen what individual anarchists do? Like, who?
Yeah, also, I was gonna say, I was gonna suggest, but yeah, this guy looks like Makhno at the front, doing a Hitler salute.
I even say that with more individual anarchists being trying to assassinate people and whatnot as a pacifist myself. It's not exactly like we're a meek type. We're fairly offensive, at least if you get what I mean.
Protecting segregation and shit. Yeah. Okay, let's get back into we're getting off track.
In any way rival the capitalist system or show any real promise that it would spread to all the countries of the world, while the Soviet Union and the socialist countries and the socialist
wait, why should it promise to hold on? Why should it promise to spread across the world?
Oh yeah, and number two, if you're I know this guy makes fun of Trotskyists a lot, but he literally just said something that Trotsky would have. That was the whole thing with Trotsky, is that he was a major imperialist. So good. Good riddance.
Wait. Here's the catch. You want to know how you inspire people to do more anarchist stuff? You do activism.
Yeah, by insurrection, by individual insurrection. You do this shit. Every nation of the world has been inspired by individual insurrection. That's why I'm an insurrectionary anarchist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If your only way for a movement to spread is if you just impose with a state okay, you're socialist, that's not really good, if I'd say so myself. But yeah, it takes a little bit when it comes to inspiring movements. Of course, we know this. But quick catch here. You can also just point to these experiments as good examples of anarchism instead of trying to judge them based on how good they managed to inspire people.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on with it.
As a force that threatened world capitalism and was almost as powerful as the capitalist camp, despite their inadvantageous starting positions, because the socialist countries began as poor third world and colonial countries, while the capitalist countries were always rich imperialist countries. So basically, anarchists have only a couple of things that they can show in terms of actually existing anarchism, which is still better than Trotskyist, because there's never been a
you killed them
Trotskyist
all.
revolution or a Trotskyist state.
Yeah.
But I would say that Trotskyism is more irrelevant than anarchism. But anyway, basically there hasn't really been an anarchist revolution where the anarchists have just said that let's have a revolution, and then the revolution has started and they've won. That hasn't really ever happened. Anarchists have managed to gain control of small territories in the course of other revolutions or other wars. So in Ukraine, when the October Revolution happened, that caused basically the Russian state to collapse, and the anarchists in Ukraine seized control of a territory. But that was only possible because of the Bolsheviks. Similarly in...
Oh my god. Free territory! Dude, go fuck yourself.
I love the coping where oh really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it totally
and
totally.
also-
Makhnovist
also-
did it solely because of the fact that the
Oh, yeah.
Bolsheviks. Also, I should note too. It's not just the Bolsheviks when it comes to the Russian Revolution.
God.
During that time, there were multiple parties. It was a civil war, for crying out loud.
Okay. Anyways, you see those two provinces to the west, like the province to the west of the west of the Free Terror. Yeah, they held Crimea, and another province. I forgot what that province was. So yeah, this map is kind of wrong. Every map is with Makhnovist as kind of like a little, wrong in some ways.
Catalonia, which is a small territory in Spain. Spain is not a very big country, but Catalonia is.
You realize it doesn't matter how much territory it held, it matters how much people they held. 7 million. 7 million in Ukraine. Think about that.
Only a very small portion
Also,
of Spain.
even if this was the case, we have to recognize as well, it's not just how many people were in there or how much territory did they have. It's how good did the systems work.
Yeah, like, we should not base it off of how much territory or whatever. We should base it off of living standards and shit.
When Franco had his fascist coup, it sparked a civil war between the Republic of Spain and its supporters and the fascists. The fascists were backed by Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, while the Republic was backed by the Soviet Union and volunteers from other countries. There was a bigger concentration of anarchists in Catalonia, so they managed to take control of that area. But again, that wouldn't have happened without the destabilization caused by the already existing civil war between sides that were much bigger than the anarchists. The anarchists were not a major player in Spain or in the Spanish Civil War. The major players were the Republican side and the fascist side. Anarchists were just a very small, minor faction in that. The anarchists, usually, they will overestimate their own importance in this, just like they overestimate tremendously their importance in the Russian Civil War, which was pretty much negligible. Now let's move more to the topic of actually existing anarchism. So, anarchists attacked the Soviet Union for not creating a stateless society. That I will talk about in a different video. But
Also, it's not the issue is that the USSR didn't turn to a stateless society. It's that it turned it to a dictatorship. you can have
Wait, hold on, wait.
like
Wait. My
a
mic was
government.
muted the whole time. They didn't even attack them, or fucking for that. They didn't even attack them in the first place. The Soviet Union attacked them. They were the aggressors. And no, the fucking myth that, the Black Army stole from supply lines. No, they were providing southern Ukrainian wheat to, help to help the Reds basically against, Kolchak's army. Okay? That's what it was.
But this argument only makes sense if we accept that anarchists themselves have created a stateless society, which a lot of people just give them that. A lot of people just accept the anarchist premise that the anarchists have themselves created a stateless society, and they will respond to that by saying, yeah, the anarchists created a stateless society, maybe, but what does it matter because the anarchists always lose? Which is certainly a valid argument. The anarchists have never been able to hold power for a prolonged period of time, no matter what.
Zapatista.
Now, let's be perfectly honest, they've always had their problems with the Soviet Union and with Marxists, but they've always also gotten massive aid from the Marxists. Makhno's Black Army in Ukraine would never have stood a chance without the Red Army. The Red Army was engaging the front of the White Army.
And the Red Army would have starved if they didn't have all that southern Ukrainian wheat.
While Makhno was essentially just carrying out partisan activity. Makhno's army...
You realize that Makhno helped against Kolchak's army and were a big part of taking out Kolchak's army. Basically, they used Makhno and his Tachankas and his, Cossack cavalry to basically almost, to win against the Kolchak's army. So, no, that's not true at all.
The army could never have actually engaged the White Front the way the Red Army did during the course of the...
Okay, yeah. That's
yeah, because it's a state.
That's a very unfair analysis when, fucking...
Yeah.
The fucking...
Of course they would engage in a different way.
Yeah. When the fucking Reds hold, all the industrial capacity of Russia... Of course, yeah.
That's like saying during World War II. That's like saying during World War II, the British had a different force within the war compared to America. Of course they did.
Yeah, and also it's like saying that Germany Germany was better than Austria-Hungary. It's like, of course they didn't have any ethnicity issues. They didn't have any. They had the industrial capacity. They had all of that. Whilst Austria-Hungary was just basically a destabilized state, basically gasping at last breaths. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Civil War. That is often overshadowed by the fact that the unstable alliance between the Bolsheviks and the anarchists eventually broke down. Similarly, in the Spanish Civil War, the anarchists got massive material aid and other kinds of aid from the Soviet Union, which was the only country...
Yeah, material aid. They got agricultural aid because the Soviet Union barely held any agricultural... They basically barely held any, wheat. They barely had any bread, and they couldn't feed their armies properly, so they hit up all the Ukrainian territories, and Makhno, accepted. Because, he believed in left unity. You know what I mean?
Country that chose to help the Republican side, anarchist or otherwise. And the anarchists often attacked the Soviet Union for stopping to send money and weapons to the anarchists. But I would just point out...
That's true. It's true. They got all of their equipment, practically all of their equipment, from raiding German and Austrian forces. which after they had significant amounts of equipment, all they needed was to produce guns, which, the Soviets provided, but the Soviets needed bread, so they gave them bread. There you go.
That if you guys are so awesome, then why do you need us to give you money and weapons all the time? Why don't you do something yourselves? And most importantly, the anarchists, they could have never stood a chance against the fascists. In fact, they never won a battle. They always lost. They never had a decisive victory, or even they never really had any.
You realize how much of a genius Makhno was like in military strategy. People called him the Napoleon of Anarchy because he often even beat the Soviet forces. He'd make Trotsky literally run until, Trotsky killed all of his advisors. He literally made the White Army spooked. It's like almost like a Vietnam, I would compare it to. Like almost like a Vietnam. You'd expect them to be weaker, but their asymmetrical warfare and their asymmetrical tactics are just way too good for, your conventional training. You know what I mean?
Any kind of victory in the Civil War. And if the Soviet-backed Republican force had not taken the brunt of the fascist attack, the anarchists would have crumbled immediately.
Okay, yeah, and? Point?
Wait, is he talking about Catalonia?
He's like, I don't even know what he's talking about.
Now, what about actually existing anarchism? Well, the anarchists in Catalonia and in the Ukrainian territory created their own society, shall we say. And they often claim that this represents stateless communism, but in my opinion, especially in the case of Ukraine, this is laughable, because in Ukraine there was no communism, there wasn't even socialism. Most people, the vast majority of people, millions, were semi-feudal peasant farmers, small peasant farmers. In many ways it wasn't, it was semi-feudal, it was pre-capitalist. Most people farmed food for themselves and then they ate it. There
What's your
wasn't even
point?
Wait, what?
No, I know. Yeah, sure.
Wait, hold on.
No. He's
Hold on,
talking about the
question.
Ukraine. He's talking
How
about
does...
He's talking about the Ukrainian territories in general, which I would agree, but certainly not how Makhno organized it. Like, damn, it's a far-fetched
Hey,
idea.
hold on. How does the original class position of people within a given territory representative of the economic system?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
but
am I stupid? I feel like that's the argument you tried to make.
yeah, let's
massive marketing of food. Mostly people just farmed for their own survival. And then there were other people who produced a bit more and they managed to sell it. That was mostly what was going on. Then there was, of course, a small industry as well in the towns. Now, the anarchists had their biggest strongholds in the rural areas, and they were actually pretty anti-urban, interestingly enough. Now, there were some communes, but the communes, which were more or less just experimental things, it wasn't a massive nationwide campaign of establishing communes. Instead, it was just a small experiment of setting one commune here. When it failed, they would set up another commune there, try it out. It never really worked out, and less than 1% of the population were actually in any way involved in these communes.
That aged well. No, that just isn't true.
That certainly doesn't. I mean, like, even based off of the map here, that certainly doesn't look like 1%.
Every territory that they liberated, they told, they applied a notice to each town that they held their own land and that they could do whatever they pleased, and they ended up forming communes. It wasn't the Makhnovists, it was the people to experiment, and it fucking worked. It fucking wheat and grain production skyrocketed.
So let's face it, there was no socialist economy in this anarchy.
It was, you could say that there was no socialist economy, but there was certainly some communist mixed in with market socialists, kind of. That was a minority. And there was there was a communist self-organized, not even organized by the Makhnovists, self-organized by these towns that wanted to experiment, and it worked. It fucking worked. Yeah, these are just lies at this point. These are literally Trotskyite records.
So you even have any sources?
He has fucking sources, like, but I can guarantee you, yeah, these are all not. These are all bad. They're all bad sources.
Territory. Also, I would totally question its statelessness. In my opinion, it is totally undeniable that the anarchists in Ukraine actually created their own state. If you're interested to know why Marxists argue that the state cannot be abolished, it can only wither away once the conditions for its withering away have been created, then check out my video on the withering away of the state. But basically the gist of it is this: the state is an instrument of class struggle which arises...
Are you literally just gonna talk about Marx?
No, it isn't.
Are you literally...
It isn't an instrument of class struggle.
I'm literally... No. We're not even gonna respond to Marxism at this point. We're here for Makhnovia and you're just fucking talking about Marx, dude? This is pathetic.
Hey, if you'd like, I could take care of this. I've been like preparing my whole life to debate someone about Marxism. Okay.
Okay, here, let's just do this first.
There is massive class conflict. So basically, when there is a proletariat that is trying to suppress a bourgeois counter-revolution, they will create a state in the form of their own military or militias, their own police force, and all that stuff. Their own legislature.
Wait.
That serves.
Wait, hold on a second right here. I feel like I need to address this when it comes to like anarchism, because I feel like from the looks of it, it seems like the Marxist definition of a state is just an organizing
If you
body,
really want,
which is
if you really
part
want,
of a function of a state, but it's not the same thing. Like, Christ, it's complex how the state works.
You talk about the state and how it's legitimate, even though the whole entire anarchist analysis of the state is literally that it negates the legitimacy of the state entirely. It doesn't exist. It's not like an organization. It's just an authorization.
And plus,
it's just an authorization for for a government to take control.
And here's the thing. You want to know something the state is very, very good at doing? It's very good at reproducing itself. Even if you have like a pretty good state, like, let's say you have like your proletarian state, which probably isn't even what Marx wants, but that's another story. Let's assume that. How do you get rid of it? Like, realistically speaking, how does it wither away?
Oh, yes, because of the
conditions.
I
don't think I've ever heard...
because of the conditions, because it won't... Blah, blah, basically...
No, but, like, realistically speaking, like, how does it specifically wither away? What does that process look like? I don't think I've ever heard Marx or any Marxist actually describe what a withering away of the state looks like in action. Okay. I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah, let's see here.
Their own interest and their own economic systems. Now, the opposite of that would be the bourgeois state, which is, of course, the bourgeois police force and the bourgeois military and the bourgeois legislature, the entire goal of which is to basically stop the poor from taking what they need from the rich. So as long as this kind of massive conflict between these two opposing groups, proletarians and capitalists, exists, then
Wait, so is a
the state is
state
gonna be
just
there.
when you attack people?
Can we just
See,
move
this
on?
is
Can
what
we
I
just-
don't get about the Marxist definition. This is what I don't get about the Marxist definition of the state,
I'm gonna say-
because they don't think that there's like anything else that could have possibly happened within history to where the state in its modern conception could have formed. They don't care to think of that. No, they just think that like a state is just when a class of people are like, we hate you. Like that's pretty much all it is by this point. And it's stupid. I hate it. Like, here's the thing. The problem with defining the state as a means for the ruling class to fight against their opposition. The issue with that is that it's not exactly correct. Although, yes, that is one of its primary functions, that's not exactly what it gets at. Of course, you can have a ruling class fight against people. That's kind of how tribes worked before the state. Conflict.
Okay, let's
One of the things
let's
that
move
the
on.
state.
Like I want this. This is like charting into Marx.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is charting into Marx.
Not be.
I mean,
got
to be
rid of,
fair,
which is why
his conception of what constitutes a state and what doesn't is fairly connected to how he translates anarchist experiments. So
Okay.
it's probably good if we like address this type of stuff.
Yeah.
the anarchists also created a state, even though they of course didn't call it a state. In Ukraine they called it the Regional Military Revolutionary Council of Peasants, Workers and Insurgents, or simply the Regional Military Council. Now, that is very sneaky. I mean, the big thing about anarchists is that they like to redefine things. You know, when they set up a state, they don't call it a state, they call it a Regional Military Council. Ooh. You know, the Libertarian Socialist Rants, he defined a state as being...
This was strictly militant. It had nothing to do with the citizens. This was the commanding center and the Democratic Assembly for the command of the Black Army. This is not
something that has a monopoly on legitimate use of violence and a particular territory, and the regional, as in territorial, military revolutionary council, as in, you know, the thing that controls all the guns, that the Makhnovists had certainly would fit that definition perfectly. Now, why do the anarchists even claim that the Makhnovist state wasn't a state? Well, to be honest, I don't really know. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is because anarchists say they are not statists. Makhno insisted that what he created was not a state, but that's pretty much all that there is. There is no real evidence to support this, because this...
Projection.
Yeah, the projection, I was about to say. And yeah, it wasn't a state. Literally, military... Why do you think it was named a military council? Do you know, if you've read anything about strategy, you'd know this is one of the common tactics of organization within strategical means. Okay, I'm the military strategist here. I tell people what to do. Okay, so a military council or a democratic military council or democratic assemblies of military council is a way of decentralized strategization. You'll see things like this with ISIS or the Taliban. They do a lot of this, basically. But however, it isn't a dictatorship. They do it strictly because it was a military. Why do you think it's named the military council, dude? Have you ever researched any bit of strategy, dude? Like, actually, like, no, have you researched strategy? Because this is This is a fucking organizational method of strategical means. This is what this is.
He's a Marxist-Leninist. Do you think he even does research?
True. It's like, yeah, we have sources. It's just that you don't even fucking look at sources. You know that we have sources, and you wouldn't even believe in this bullshit.
Regional council certainly had all the elements of a state. It was a ruling body of this area with authority that couldn't be questioned. All other parties were illegal. All other new.
You realize that the military council made military decisions. It should be obvious. Now they don't make fucking, you know, fucky status decisions. They only make military decisions.
Drink every time Nestor says fuck.
Okay, the fucky. Okay. So basically, this is what that happened. At a military council, democratic assemblies would vote on how to strategize against the the Red Army or the White Army. Basically, that's what they would do. That isn't a fucking state. That's just a method of militant organization. You find it very common in ISIS and Taliban. This is very, and honestly, if I'm gonna be honest, if our professional U.S. military hasn't been able to take out the Taliban or ISIS in many years, I find it pretty effective, honestly. That random people can just join and, you know, defeat our U.S. troops. It's pretty effective.
Newspaper.
Also, like, as far as I can tell from the whole thing, it's not that everyone was subjugated to the military. The military themselves did not own the land. The communes owned the land.
Yeah.
The military's only real purpose was to just help defend that land.
Yeah, literally, what the communes did was that there was mass organization, or there was mass, you know, uprisings of communes, because, you know, they were in an anarchist state. The towns wanted to, you know, experimentalize. That's what they did, and it ended up boosting production, and ended up evolving in better allocation and management for resources, and actually better diplomacy. So yeah, it ended up way better than you fucking think, because guess what? That military council you're talking about, yeah. Why do you think they called it a military council, dude? Why do you think they called it a fucking military council? Obviously, because it might have been a military. Come on, this is normal strategization.
Also, I know someone is probably going to bring up. I know someone's probably going to bring up the fact that Marxist-Leninists also had a bunch of industrialization or whatever, just so that way they could do like soy jack, like screaming. But the thing is that a lot of the time when you actually look at the living conditions of these countries, you'll find that, well, fun fact, not exactly much of a good time there. Sure, USSR, for example, may have given public housing, but the housing was terrible. I mean, even within the Industrial Revolution, I've been trying to read up on this. Frankly speaking, the living conditions were not particularly great, and if they were particularly great, then that's outweighed by, for example, rising inequality. It's not exactly a bright time when it comes to industrialization, or at least how it's played out so far.
Let me see.
Checking the sources?
I'm just checking the sources, and
newspaper were illegal. The military council.
Oh yeah, by the way, if you want the full truth of why parties were abolished, yeah, no shit, it's an anarchist society. Yeah, they're gonna be fucking abolished. Like, we don't want fucking, you know, collectives controlling.
Anarchist party.
Yeah, anarchist party. That's an oxymoron, dude.
Had a total monopoly on violence. They had their own secret police, which was called the Kontrrazvedka. They had their own penal system. You know, everyone knows about Makhno chain-ganging peasants who opposed his rule and using them as slave labor. But even if you don't accept...
Sure isn't. Yeah. Fucking stupid. Here.
that Makhno had a state. If I was an anarchist, I wouldn't support
Makhno
Makhno.
even
I mean,
have
I know
like
plenty of anarchists
slaves?
who
No. It's a myth.
don't support Makhno, but I also know plenty who do. But you really shouldn't, because he was an awful guy. I mean, his concept of anarchy meant that they destroyed the bourgeois state where they found it, and they pretty much just acted like bandits. They went from village to village, taking what they need.
They went from village to village, telling them that they should to take what they need. Telling the peasants to take what they need from bourgeois landowners.
Scandalous.
Okay, so yeah, they distributed land to these communes and actually gave them notices that they could do whatever they want. You can see this on Wikipedia and several other sources.
Just stole people's stuff with no compensation of any kind. At least the Bolsheviks, when they procured grain from the peasants, they paid them at a fixed price, or they gave them certificates which were basically war bonds, ensuring people that when the Bolsheviks win, they will pay them, which is what, that's what war bonds are.
Yeah, no, they had war bonds, but did they get paid back? No. Back? Fucking cares.
But the anarchists, they stole people's stuff, and that's that.
Dude, you're so uneducated. You're so fucking illiterate. Oh my god.
Anarchism is when you steal stuff.
Oh my god, you're so fucking illiterate. It's unfucking believable. Holy fucking shit, I'm gonna shit my pants.
Hold on, if anarchism is when stealing stuff, do we have to tell... Wait, if anarchism is when stealing stuff, do we have to tell them that the Bolsheviks stole from banks to fund their movement?
Now, sometimes anarchists will say that the Makhnovist army was not a typical army. Well, the Makhnovist army was a totally typical army. The Bolsheviks...
Army.
Dude, you know nothing, honestly. They literally set up democratic assemblies for their fucking army. That's why they had a military council. You don't fucking know this because you are a illiterate dog, like a fucking dogma-fed piece of shit. Okay? Yeah, they fucking had military council. Yeah. The fucking anarchist Cossack says this. Fucking, history of the Makhnovist movement says this. I could provide you unlimited amounts of books and sources, dude. Literally. Check out the Medium. Check out Medium. On their fucking, source on Makhno. Check out fucking, what was his name? Check out Makhno himself. Obviously, there's no fucking, excuse you can fizzle your way out of this because there's no proof other than Trotskyite evidence. You're against the Trotskyites, right? Then why do you fucking trust them when they turn around and fucking make fun of anarchists and basically kill them? Okay? Why do you trust them? I thought you didn't like Trotskyites. I thought you dunked on Trotskyites so much, but apparently you're too fucking stupid to realize that this was made by Trotsky. All of it. All this fucking evidence that you have was made by fucking Trotsky. Either that, or the books that you're suggesting were fucking biased and literally by bourgeois kulaks that literally. I'm getting too ahead of myself.
Also, we should probably ask this as well. We can't just say there was police within Makhno. Like, how did they actually function? Were they a separate body that everyone had to obey? Was it just another part of the military council?
Were they fucking what he's talking about, or the paramilitaries that these communes owned, that they used. That's what he's talking about. Paramilitias, I would say.
Policy of conscription, because the whites also had conscription and because the Bolsheviks thought that they needed to do that. So that's why Makhno also
There's no conscription. There was actually no fucking conscription. Oh my god. Oh, okay. There was actually no conscription. All my sources tell me this. No conscription. So go fuck yourself.
Adopted the same policy, but because he was an anarchist, he didn't want to call it conscription because that doesn't sound very stateless. You know, because what is conscription? Conscription is when the state tells you that you need to fight in the military and you have no choice in the matter. That is conscription. It's a draft. Now the anarchists, they couldn't have that, so instead they called it voluntary mobilization instead of conscription.
What is this fucking 2010 room? Get out of the fucking thousands.
Now, it has the term voluntary in the name, right? So you would think that it would be voluntary, as in you don't have to go unless you want to, right? As in, you all know what voluntary means. But no, this is a bulletin that the Makhnovist state issued, and it says, quote, "Some groups have understood voluntary mobilization as mobilization only for those who wish to enter the insurrectionary army, and that anyone who for any reason wishes to stay at home is not liable. This is not correct. The voluntary mobilization has been called because the peasants, workers and insurgents themselves decided to mobilize themselves without awaiting the arrival of instructions from the central authority." Now doesn't that sound like an incredible pile of horseshit? Like, what the fuck does that mean? So they say, voluntary mobilization is not voluntary. In fact, you have no choice. You have to come. You thought that means that you can stay at home if you want to. But that is not correct. It's not correct. You have to come.
You're completely misinterpreting it. What it's actually what it's actually saying is that
really felt like a misinterpretation.
Yeah, what it's actually saying is that it's saying that random people from their homes literally just went to the Makhnovist and asked them, "Hey, I want to join." Happened.
And join the army. And the justification is that the voluntary mobilization has been called, in other words, the conscription and the draft has been called because some peasants and some workers already mobilized before. So because there's some people who volunteered, that means that everyone has to volunteer. Now that's of course total bullshit.
Do you think central authorities is supposed to refer to the military council?
No, literally, this is so stupid. We already disproved it.
That everyone is already mobilizing, so we're just making this policy to make it official, even though everyone's already mobilizing. Now, that is, of course, total bullshit. The actual reason why they implemented this policy is because not enough people chose to volunteer. That is the obvious explanation. Why do they need to issue this voluntary conscription where everyone is forced to come? It's because they were running out of soldiers. Then there's of course the idea that Makhno's army was somehow special kind of army because it had no normal military discipline or something like that. Well, that is not exactly the case either. This is what Makhno says on the subject. Quote, without discipline inside the organization, there is no way of undertaking any consequential revolutionary activity at all. In the absence of discipline, the revolutionary vanguard cannot exist.
Wait.
So
Hold
it's
on.
pretty interesting that Makhno considers himself a vanguardist,
There's-
even though...
Oh my god, you're so stupid!
Hold on. First,
No, I need to throw this out the way. When he's referring, if you've ever
Go for
fucking
it.
read his books, he is referring to the fucking platform. That's what he's referring to. Yeah, and obviously, yeah, soldiers are gonna be trained. And, okay, that's... It's funny.
all anarchists oppose vanguardism. For in that case, it would find itself in utter disarray and its practice would be incapable of identifying the tasks that the movement or of living up to the initiator role that the masses expect of it. So Makhno wasn't opposed to military discipline either in its most traditional sense. Now, Makhno's Black Army of course had the unusual feature that theoretically the soldiers could elect their own officers, but in practice that wasn't really carried out. In fact,
Yeah, that was.
Makhno had total veto powers on who was elected, not to mention that there was basically massive nepotism going on. Like his government consisted of his wife and his buddies. So yeah, there's that. And he himself was undeniably pretty much a military dictator whose power was totally unrivaled and uncontested. You know, even Stalin didn't have veto powers on all elections that happened.
Oh my god. That was so bullshit. That was so bullshit. The lies upon lies upon lies upon lies and Trotsky myths that he spreaded. Yep, this has been disproving fucking bull again with Nikolai and Nestor. I'm pissed because this was all a bunch of fucking lies. All a bunch of lies. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna fucking go because that was such a. Okay, I guess. I guess the moral story. Yeah, the story is that don't trust people like this. People like this are the reason that we don't like Marxists around here. Okay, that's the reason. Anyway.
Guide to Marxist economics.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
God.
Okay, yeah. That was a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, basically, Trotskyite myths. You know the deal. Okay. Well,
And by the way, for the people that are watching this, I understand that if you may be a bit confused, that Nestor is screaming that this is Trotskyite propaganda, and he gives no sources, but I imagine he'll give sources in the description, right? And
I'll try. I'll try. I'll try, definitely. Yeah, I'll link my fucking article and everything. I'll do that shit. I'll link all that shit. I'll obviously link the books, you know what I mean? That it says otherwise. I also link the Wikipedia article because Wikipedia, though it may have a bad reputation, with the sources that proves right, and it ends up being right. Okay, yep, I'm gonna go. So yep, that was a fucking shit faced. That's but no.
make sure to like and subscribe.
Yep, see ya.